I never believed in haunted objects. That kind of thing always seemed like overhyped nonsense, something people told themselves to make sense of the unexplainable. But then I inherited a box of porcelain dolls from my Aunt Meredith. She was the kind of woman you'd expect to be eccentric, lived alone in an old Victorian house at the edge of a forgotten town, never married, and collected strange antiques from places no one could trace. When she passed, most of her estate was sold off, but for some reason, she left the dolls to me. I wasn't thrilled. The box arrived on a rainy Wednesday, a simple wooden crate with no return address, just my name carved into the top. Not written, carved, with sharp, deliberate strokes. Inside were 6 porcelain dolls, each dressed in old-fashioned clothing, their eyes painted with a glossy sheen that made them shimmer like glass. But what unsettled me most was that they didn't match. They looked like they came from different eras, different countries even. Each doll had a name tag tied around its wrist with fraying string. Clara, Elise, Greta, Annalise, Margaret, and Sophie. I didn't know where to put them, so I lined them up on a shelf in my living room, more out of obligation than interest. They stared forward, unmoving, with that classic blank doll expression, somewhere between innocent and predatory. The first night I thought I heard something fall in the living room, a soft thump, like a book tipping over. I checked, but everything seemed fine. The dolls were still there, still facing forward. Maybe one of them had tilted. I couldn't be sure. I was tired. I went to bed, but the next morning, Clara wasn't on the shelf. She was sitting on the floor, propped against the leg of the coffee table, head tilted slightly to the side like she was listening for something. I laughed nervously, assuming I must have forgotten to put her back properly, or maybe the shelf was uneven. I put her back. That day, I kept glancing at the shelf from my desk while working. They looked different somehow. I couldn't explain it, but the energy in the room felt off, like the dolls were aware of me, watching, waiting. I pushed the thought aside. That night, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of whispering. Not loud, just soft, like 2 people talking behind a wall. I sat up in bed, heart racing, trying to determine if I was dreaming, but then I heard it again. From the living room, whispers, and something else. A quiet, dragging sound. I got out of bed slowly and crept to the hallway. The house was dark, except for the glow of the streetlight leaking through the blinds. I peeked into the living room. The dolls were no longer on the shelf. They were arranged in a semicircle on the floor, facing each other, like they'd been having a meeting. My breath caught. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I was frozen by a cold, creeping realization. This was not a prank. No one else had keys to my house. No one had broken in. And yet, the dolls had moved. I turned on the lights. The room felt colder than the rest of the house. I gathered the dolls and put them back, this time placing them in a locked cabinet with glass doors. But the next night, they got out again. This time, they were scattered, one on the kitchen counter, one at the top of the stairs, another sitting on my office chair, arms folded neatly in her lap. I didn't hear them move. I didn't see them do it. But every time I looked away, they changed positions. I started researching them. Deep dives into obscure collector forums, books on cursed objects, anything I could find. One article referenced a doll named Margaret, eerily similar to the one I now owned. It was linked to the disappearance of a little girl in 1912. Another doll, Sophie, had belonged to a woman who went mad and set her entire home on fire. Every doll had a history, and none of it was good. By the end of that week, I wasn't sleeping. I'd set up cameras in the living room, determined to catch them moving. But every morning, the footage would be corrupted, static, glitches, or completely blank between 2 and 3 a.m. I tried salt around the cabinet. I tried prayers, chants, even left the TV on for background noise. Nothing worked. Then came the night. I heard the laugh. It was a child's laugh. Light, musical, but wrong. It came from the foot of my bed. I snapped on the lamp and screamed. Elise, the smallest doll, was sitting on my blanket, head cocked, her tiny hand raised like she'd just waved. I threw her across the room. I was done. I gathered all 6 dolls, shoved them back into the crate, and sealed it with tape, nails, anything I could find. I drove 3 towns over and dumped them at an antique store that looked like it hadn't had a customer in a decade. The owner, a frail old man with clouded eyes, didn't even flinch when I explained I wanted to leave them there. He simply nodded and said, "They always find their way back." I thought he was just being cryptic, until 2 nights later, when the crate showed up on my porch. Same carvings, same dolls, no return label, no truck, just there, waiting. I left the crate sealed and locked it in the basement, too afraid to burn them, too scared to throw them out again. But the activity didn't stop. Now I hear them in the walls, tiny footsteps across the floorboards, whispers in the vents. Sometimes the lights flicker and I find one of the dolls sitting at the edge of the hallway, staring straight at me, always closer than before. The worst part? They've started whispering my name. Last night, I woke up to find Clara sitting on my chest, her glass eyes inches from mine. Her mouth was open, and I swear I heard breathing coming from inside her. I don't know how to get rid of them. I don't know what they want, but I know this. They were never just dolls. They are vessels, trapped souls, pieces of something older and darker than I ever imagined, something that uses innocence as a mask. And now that I've let them in, they don't plan on leaving. If you're watching this, if you're hearing this, never take a doll that doesn't belong to you, because once they know your name, they never forget.